Good day, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Governance and Policy Podcast by the Adam Smith Center, Singapore's first and only organization promoting pro-market values. The aim of this podcast is educational and to underpin the importance of economics, public policy ideas, and the humanities in general. I'm Colin, and I'll be the host for today's episode. Today, we're joined by Farhan Firdaus, who will speak on the struggles of small businesses amidst this ongoing COVID-19 pandemic. Farhan is a venture builder with experience in traditional enterprise and technopreneurship, receiving an NTU scholarship in the latter. He sits on advisory boards of local institutions and seeks to inspire the next generation of entrepreneurs. He has also previously given his own talk on the TEDx platform. How are you today, Farhan?
I'm good. Thank you for inviting me to be on the show, Colin.
Great. It's good to hear. It's our pleasure. So now it's a commonly known fact that small businesses are the backbone of the economy. Do you think that the pandemic will fundamentally change this?
Yeah, so that's a really good question. Now, in all honesty, I get asked a lot about the future of business, right? The future of businesses, the industries, large local companies, global MNCs. So people ask people like myself as if we have a crystal ball and we know what's going to happen in the future. The only thing that what I can say is this: what we're going through is what most entrepreneurs and even I would say top C-suiters have never seen in their lifetime. So these are unprecedented times. Probably a similar situation was what we're going through. It can be seen during the Great Depression in the US, but I think that could be similar, but there may not be as many people who are living today to tell the story. So I think we are going through challenges that are very new and unique. From my observation, from your question is that I would say that the pandemic does not understand, or it does not recognize borders. It doesn't recognize socioeconomic status. It affects everyone, and we have seen global leaders, heads of governments, heads of states, even being affected by COVID. Now back to business. I would say that while COVID-19 and its effect on economy, so basically the economic effects of COVID-19, while it affects everyone, I would say that larger businesses, the impact on it would be much more severe, right? For the very reason that large businesses, so how do we define large businesses? It could be, enterprises with more than 100 million in revenue, right? Usually they are maybe a few hundred million in revenue, several billions in dollars in revenue. So these are businesses that have a lot of overheads to maintain and manage. So you just imagine a situation like the last 3 months that we have faced from April, May, and June, right? And some of them even at the beginning of March. Just imagine a big business with more than 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 staff. Of course, global MNCs have much more headcount of maybe 10,000 and above. So imagine if you have thousands of staff on your payroll, okay? You're not able to service new projects, you don't have revenue coming in, and you have overheads that you have to pay from all across the world. How would that affect you? It will affect you very badly, right? So I would say that while the effects of COVID-19 affects everybody, bigger businesses, I would say, face the brunt of the effects of COVID, because for the very fact of the existence of very large overheads that they have to shoulder, and also big companies that are from certain industries. So, for example, services industries that are more service-oriented, tourism-oriented, right? These are industries that will also be more severely impacted. Now, if we look at smaller businesses, that doesn't mean to say that they're not affected. From my observation and analysis, okay, everyone's affected, but it's just the severity, right? So businesses that are more traditional, that are more conventional, for example, an F&B outlet that has been like a brick and mortar store. So for example, there are two. I'll give you an example if you don't mind. There are two small businesses that I know that are side by side in a kopitiam in Jurong East. Right? I'm sorry if it's a little bit local, right? But so one is selling, just your typical noodles, Chinese noodles, right? And then there's another stall that's selling Western. Okay. Now, because of COVID-19, the last 2 months, the Western stall continues to see a long line stream of queuing up during this. So they're running every day, but the business has not stopped. As a matter of fact, the business has, I would say, it is normal. That means they have not seen a drop in sales. Okay, it is because of two reasons. The product that the shop is selling is a product that people cannot make at home, or it is very troublesome to do. So they're a Western food stall. Okay, that's the first. And then the second thing is they are also using technology. So they're available on delivery platforms such as Foodpanda, Grab. So while most of their business comes from people taking away, but they do have that as an option. And they do have social media presence a little bit. So people who want to find a Western food stall in Jurong, they know where to go. As compared to their neighboring stall that basically is just selling a typical Chinese noodle and nothing else, and this is something that customers can make at home. Nothing special. I don't need to go down just to buy your noodles. How different. So I think I'm just sharing from a business point of view. In times of COVID, in times like this, your offerings might also change. So what I'm trying to say is, I think the use of technology is important, and also I would say that the effect on small businesses, I would say that while COVID-19, makes certain businesses obsolete, it also provides opportunities for other businesses. So for example, there could be a rise of home-based businesses. It could be housewives, it could be part-timers making masks and selling it online, right? A lot of the masks are quite hideous, to be honest. You may not want to use a disposable mask. You might want to use a design mask, basically something that's made out of very nice fabric. So people are coming out with interesting ideas, constantly. And there could be another business idea where someone could do it online, or a small business. Now, since everyone's doing online, webinars and talks like this, there could be an idea whereby people would be now selling kit. Like speaking kits. So basically now, since we're going to do a lot of webinars and meetings, you could sell a kit that consists of a mic, a lighting, a backdrop, and these are interesting ideas that have sprouted due to COVID-19. So what I'm trying to say is, while conventional businesses, as a result of our, social distancing measures and stuff like that, while those businesses close, there are new businesses that will also emerge. So just the last point, I would say that I may be a little bit harsh to say this, but in my observation, from what I see in social media, people were sharing about, this is a list of F&B outlets that have closed, over 100. In all honesty, most of them that I see, I've never heard of them before, right? And most of them I see are not the popular ones that we all like. Like it has become a household name, either in your community or in downtown Orchard Road or City Hall. So what I'm trying to say is, now in business, if you don't differentiate, if you don't have great offerings, if you don't have new ways of doing things, no new innovations, you will just disappear as a matter of time, right? And I think many of these businesses that I see were those that were already not doing so well. So I think the probably the pandemic just accelerated their
Right.
departure.
Right. I definitely take your point. I think businesses in this pandemic have sort of pivoted and they have innovated in order to keep up with the changes. Yeah, but we'll get back to that in a bit. So maybe
Sure.
we can change gears a bit. We can talk a bit about social innovation. So we've seen companies across all sectors taking the opportunity to further embed themselves in the social fabric of the communities in which they operate. So will social innovation drive future businesses?
Social innovation is a very broad. I mean, it can be very defined, be defined very broadly. Could
Mhm.
you share some examples of? Is
Perhaps
it
you could,
corporate giving? So CSR? Is that what you
yeah,
mean?
yes, that was the vein of thought I was actually getting at, like corporate giving and CSR, corporate social responsibility. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So your question is, will this be, uh, will this be the future?
Yes, like are we seeing the rise in CSR or corporate
Ah,
social responsibility being a trend only in crisis-stricken times, or is this a
ah,
trend going into the future?
okay, okay. Sorry, I was just clarifying.
Oh, no worries
Okay,
at all.
so apart from the work that I do and Meet Ventures, which is very related to startups and corporate MNCs, a little known fact is that I'm also a fellow, a company of good fellow for corporate giving under the National Volunteer Philanthropy Center. Right, so there are a lot of good folks there that are also fellows like me. I would say that from my experience in that, um, okay, so corporate giving has always been there, right? And there have been companies that have been traditionally, um, I would say, in the industry, people know that these are good companies, right? For example, we know that Sheng Siong, you know, uh, uh, takes care of their staff during COVID, right? And also, there was a recent article on Mothership that Sheng Siong, during every funeral, they would go in and give a little ang pao, right? Um, but these are corporations that don't want people to know that they're doing good, which is fair. Um, and there are also other organizations that are well known to pledge dollar for dollar if you donate. So what I'm trying to say is this: there have been companies that are well known for their corporate giving, like for example, Singtel, uh, Singapore Airlines, Fullerton Health, right? These are all companies, Infineon, and so on. So, but it's just that the pandemic has highlighted these companies doing social good. They have always been doing it. It's not just because there's a pandemic, they started doing corporate giving. No. I would say that probably there are two situations here. One is that the pandemic highlighted their act of corporate giving. That means that they do it. Um, Industry players know, but public may not know that these companies are active contributors to society as well. And the pandemic may also have changed the way they give. So they may have decided to give more aid, more help. They may, leverage on their network of partnerships. So, for example, I think there is another initiative by Ninja Van and Night Owl Cinematic, NOC, yeah, with a few other partners as well. I think it's called the SG Paid Forward Initiative or something like that. But definitely it's by Ninja Van. So what they did was Ninja Van, Night Owl Cinematics, and a few other partners, together with the MCCY panel for young change makers. I think they've got a MCCY panel for youths. So together with all those other partners, they started to basically get people to donate money so that they could, I think $50, $100, and so on. and they were targeting 100,000 donations. I think today they're at like 34,000, 35,000, right? Not bad. They're wanted there. So that's where beneficiaries will receive, I would say, COVID-19 care packs. So like now we're reopening our economy, so probably they'll receive things such as gloves, maybe masks, hand sanitizers, whatsoever. So what I'm trying to say in a nutshell is companies have always been giving.
Yes.
But it's just that the pandemic shows the spotlight on them. But perhaps the pandemic, from what I see, the pandemic has also, in a way that there has been discussions in the world of corporate giving that, but this was discussed on news channels such as CNN, BBC, whether should we name the corporate givers, the corporate giving companies, or should we shame those who don't? Right? So should we honor and glorify those who do, or should we shame those who don't? And it is also an opportunity today, because if there is a pandemic, to see which are the companies that genuinely give, right? And those who don't. So I think the world is watching, public is watching, I would say that the culture of corporate giving in these pandemic times, I would say that I don't think it would have a much severe impact on corporate giving of smaller companies, right? I'm sure smaller companies do give in their own way. They're already struggling now, trying to make ends meet and pay their overheads and stuff. But I would say that, if small and medium companies do give, I think it's more on an individual basis. There are some who also give in kind, right? So for example, they make food. So if they're F&B outlet, they actually donate food. And I think there is a food stall in NTU run by a young person below age of 35. I forgot his name. I think he's giving free food as well, and public is helping him to raise funds as well. So we're seeing a lot of these kind of efforts on the ground. But I totally agree with you about. So I don't think there is a surge of corporate giving. I would say that from what I see, another observation I want to highlight is, because everyone is in a challenging situation now trying to stabilize their business, I would say that probably the very big ticket donations is coming from global MNCs rather than large local entities. I mean, this is what I'm saying. So large companies are doing their part, but the really big ticket items you see, like donations of 5 million and above and stuff like that, are coming from regional or global players. Yeah, but having said that, everyone is, we were seeing a lot of corporate giving. We're seeing a lot of social initiatives coming from individuals as well. So many people coming together to help society in their own way, and I even had a young entrepreneur who just started out his business. So the business is called N Gives. It's a corporate giving it is a corporate gifts company, and the young gentleman just started his business, but since COVID just happened, and at that time it was very difficult to find medical supplies, he actually procured a few $1,000s worth of surgical masks to give out to the elderly. So these are the types of I would say culture that we're seeing. So we're definitely seeing a more united, more giving society. Yeah.
Okay, so I guess this next question comes quite naturally then. How can businesses balance their CSR with profitability and sustainability?
How can businesses balance CSR initiatives with profitability and sustainability?
Yes, correct. Mm-hmm.
Okay. I think we have to be very clear why companies give, and usually when startups or small businesses come to me, on an informal basis to ask for advice or tips on corporate giving, I always say this: a duty of a business is to be profitable. Even a social enterprise has to be profitable. This is your duty. You have to make money for yourself and for your stakeholders, especially your investors. This is a priority. If not, don't call yourself a business, right? However, even a non-social enterprise, that means a business that is a regular business that is not a social enterprise, has a duty to society, right? So it doesn't mean that only social enterprises would have to think about the environment, think about people, think about every, because at the end of the day, businesses exist um, in societies, and we are responsible for all the stakeholders that we have. So for example, who are your stakeholders? Your stakeholders are your investors, your employees, um, people in the community, right? So if you're running a business, you shouldn't be polluting the air, you shouldn't be polluting the water, you shouldn't, for example, be making use of the very extremely cheap labor, right? So like for example, if there is you shouldn't be making use of people who are struggling to live. I'm just giving examples. What you should do is you should be improving their lives and so on. So I think this is a responsibility of every business to do good, right? But at the same time, businesses always struggle between profitability and doing good, right? Um, and they're always seen as two separate entities. A lot of companies always say, let me make money first, right? And then when I have some spare time, and then I'll do good, right? I think, what I'm trying to say is I think it's normal in smaller businesses, but when a business grows to become a medium, large, and large local entity, and then it becomes a regional MNC, global MNC, you would realize that giving becomes more and more important. Why? Right? Because giving, at the end of the day, I think the customers are very, I would say, there are 101 reasons why people give, right? So for example, corporations give. First reason is the founders and the management team believes in nurturing community. That it could be out of, sheer altruism. Second reason would be, especially if your business is quite controversial. That means you involve in tobacco production, in alcohol production. You are, basically making paper and stuff like that. Why companies give back as well is to basically, I would say, balance the opinion of them by society, which is highly influenced by non-profit organizations, right? Who basically might riot, protest, and whatever that you do, right? So this is another reason. Another reason basically is it is consumer induced. So consumers love companies that do good, right? And consumers appreciate when their consumer dollar is stretched. So for example, if I were to buy, so for example, I have a friend of mine who runs a childcare center in an emerging market, okay, in the Philippines, right? She has a brilliant business model. For every child you put into her childcare center, she will educate a child who is from an impoverished neighborhood in the Philippines. So this way, parents feel that they're doing something good without even directly intending to do good. Does it make sense? Yes. So when their kid is getting a quality education that will bring them to a good, I would say, elementary school, or in our case, it will be primary school, right? And so on. There is guarantee from the school that they are also providing quality education to a child who could not afford it. So I think this is one of the brilliant ways companies can do, because people feel good. And when parents realize that they're doing good indirectly, they will tell their friends. So what the company then benefits now is they have basically the branding of a do-good company etched in the minds of consumers, right? So these are all examples of, why companies would do good. right? So I think the thing that businesses have to, especially small and medium enterprises and even micro enterprises, which are known as startups, I think what they have to address is they need to understand that doing good doesn't necessarily mean that you have to be a millionaire, then you can do good, right? Everyone can do good, right? Give you an example. If every single company, even a small company that's earning only 100K per year, right, to a company that's earning 1 billion per year. Imagine, Colin, if we have companies, I think Singapore has few 100,000, businesses that are being registered, right? So imagine if each and every of these companies, if in a society that has few 100,000 businesses, if every business has pledged to take care of one elderly person, right? That means this person may stay in HDB or this person may stay in a nursing home. Imagine if each and every company pledges just one elderly person, and we put this as $200 or $100 into our expenses every month. How many people will we be able to help? So I guess, $100 or $200 is not difficult for a small company, right? It's whether you want to or not.
Yeah.
So what I'm trying to say is that even small businesses can give back as well. So my advice for small businesses, since the topic today is very much on small and medium businesses, I think my advice for small and medium businesses to do good would be to do good strategically, find a social cause that helps you. So for example, if you're in the line of F&B, try to find social causes that are related to food. If you're in the line of maybe you're a pest control company, right? So if you're actually killing pests to help people to be protected from dangerous animals, then you might want to do projects that actually help the environment. Maybe you can help the bee colonies. Maybe you can help certain other insects. So what I'm trying to say is that be strategic in your giving, right? Whereby play on your strengths, so give back in your industry. In that sense, you will reap back. So give intentionally, give sincerely, but at the same time, try to benefit from the branding as well. Now, the reason why I say this, it doesn't mean that if it's in line with your business means you're not sincere. No. If you're giving in line with your industry, it is, to me, sustainable giving. Why?
Yes.
Because when you can justify to your investors, your board of directors, that yes, this is our core business, but we're also giving back, right? And we're giving back to, and when we give back, it makes us, it enhances our branding. It makes our workers feel better. It makes them more engaged. This would overall benefit the company. And just one last point I want to talk about corporate giving is that from the last 5 to 6 years that I have also been involved in corporate giving, I've realized that corporate giving is very good for management who want to keep their staff engaged, because people who work for companies that give back to society, they're a lot happier. Right? They are a lot happier, especially if they can choose the social causes. So I think how some small and medium enterprises push the envelope a little bit, how they evolve their corporate giving. It starts with a prescribed corporate giving, and then to say, hi everyone, we're going to do this now. And then it will evolve into, you can select what you want to do. And then it can even evolve into the company giving the employees a sum of money, a small sum of money, maybe $100. And you can say, I will make this donation in your name. Choose the social cause. So I would say these are small little steps that small and medium businesses can take to make their corporate giving more sustainable.
Yes, I wholeheartedly agree that it's about looking at shareholders and stakeholders as well. So yeah, definitely. So with Singapore's 4 COVID-19 support budgets, there have been cash injections to drive the push for digital. Will venturing into the digital space necessarily cure all the business ills of the pandemic? I think you spoke about this a bit earlier, right? About how there were a list of restaurants that sort of went out because of the pandemic. So maybe you could bring those in again.
I would say that, getting your business online will not be the only thing that will help you survive. So in the example of the food stall just now, they are selling food that people want, right? So if you're not selling food that people want, then you can start to innovate. And we call this product innovation, right? So this is an example of product innovation whereby you create products that, like, give you an example. There will be a time where people will be sick and tired of the regular bubble tea that they see outside, right? So for example, bubble teas started a good 10 to 15 years ago with just the normal flavors. And then suddenly, came up, there was a flavor that came, the brown sugar bubble tea, right? And then suddenly now there's a big craze of Taiwanese oriented bubble tea, right? So these are examples of product innovation. And not only have the flavors of the bubble teas changed, but also the way the bubble tea is being presented. You've got more interesting packaging now, like the handle itself now is, I think they're trying to make it more environmentally friendly. They're trying to do away with straws, for example. So I think these are all examples that companies need to take when it comes to product, right? An example of service innovation is, I have a friend who's a home-based baker. Okay, so before COVID, what happens is she bakes cakes, and her cakes are not cheap, mind you. Her cakes are more expensive than the ones that you can find in the malls and stuff. So normal cakes are between 35 to about 70. Hers is retailing at about 75 to 90. There has to be a reason why people still buy, because her ingredients, although it's slightly more expensive than the ones in the mall, right, in the shopping center, her ingredients are more premium, and she makes very big cakes, and the cakes are very decadent, right? So she goes to the extreme, right? That could be seen as a product innovation by itself, and she doesn't have a menu. You tell her what you want, she creates it for you. And but I think she goes an extra mile with service innovation, whereby she appears at your doorstep with her chef attire, right? And then she mingles with a customer, greets the customer, happy birthday. She talks about the cake. So this is service innovation, right? And then of course there is process innovation. How do you, and of course, so what I'm trying to say is that you cannot just leverage on technology by itself. You need to have a solid product. You need to have a solid service, right? And then the technology to complement. At the end of the day, we're doing all this, right, to basically differentiate from our competitors. Yeah, because a shop that sells the same shop, like as another, for example, we all have this bread shop in our neighborhood, and this bread shop looks like another bread shop in a few hundred towns. It's the same, they're just selling bread and pastries and whatever. But that kind of shop would not induce you to travel all the way to buy cakes, because there's nothing special about it. So when you're running a business, you need to be special, right? Which is why Bread Talk today continues to be the leader in, I would say, pastries and bread. And why? Because they constantly innovate. They create new products, right? So, like the chicken floss bun, they created it, right? And then they're always coming up with themed food. So if there's a FIFA World Cup, they'll create a World Cup bun. They'll create a SEA Games bun. They'll create, so it's very, very interesting. People are always looking forward. So what I'm trying to say is that the businesses that do not survive either a recession or a pandemic are basically businesses that just remain status quo. They do not improve in any sense or whatsoever, right? So while technology does help, because you see, when you use technology, if you put your products and services, everything on the online platform, it doesn't guarantee that you will succeed, right? So give you an example. If you're an F&B outlet and you put yourself on Foodpanda, it doesn't guarantee that you will do well, right? There is whole range of other things, such as whether are your products innovative, are they interesting? you know, like are they of good quality, right? So I think these are all the other things that matter as well on top of technology.
Mm. Yes, I quite agree with you there. Like we're seeing a lot of innovation happen quicker and faster, being expedited solely because of the pandemic. So yeah, definitely. So the founder of the World Economic Forum, Klaus Schwab, has called for a great reset of capitalism to create a healthier, more equitable, and more prosperous future. So what would your final words be for worried entrepreneurs, especially in this time of the pandemic?
I would say that you know, now is a little bit, we are in a state of infancy in the post COVID-19 period. I wouldn't say that we've even started post. We're still in pandemic. Um, the way people do business might be the same, but the businesses itself, the form of the business might change, right? And as what we've talked about earlier, the adoption of technology would definitely be a lot more higher today than it was pre-pandemic. Uh, you know, as I mentioned, companies are trying to go online. They're trying to increase their digital footprint. Um, you know, schools are trying to juggle between e-learning, and I think you have one speaker who was also interviewed on e-learning, right? So you have schools. I would say almost all schools are trying to also boost their e-learning capabilities, trying to have a mixture of both e-learning and physical learning. And yeah, so I think a lot of this online uh, adoption has been accelerated due to COVID. Uh, about about uh, equality, I think my sensing is that we're still too early to predict anything at this moment, right? Um, but yes, I do agree on the reset. At the moment, you know, even big companies are not spared. So airline companies, you know, on their knees now, trying to get everything back to normal. They're you know, and so as a matter of fact, Spain, I think sometime this week they are actually testing out um, tourism again with a tour group from Germany, right? So I think once that, I think in the state of Mallorca or something like that. So once that basically has become positive, then I think they will open up. So I think everyone's starting from ground zero. You know, big companies have their branding, but it's just that everyone has to start again. And I think how, you know, at least how the world is operating will be quite different. So about equality, I'm not entirely sure. Maybe that is a vision that that businesses have to operate equitably, but I think the you know, being equitable, I think it's more for how businesses treat their staff rather than the whole business environment being equitable, because I don't think the business environment can be equitable, right? Because global MNCs, regional MNCs will have, you know, they will be ahead of um, large local companies, medium enterprises, and so on. However, this is a good observation. However, maybe what the person is trying to say from the World Economic Forum is that because global MNCs have been affected by the pandemic, and a lot of us are now operating our businesses within our own countries or regionally, that might give an opportunity for medium to large companies, right, to basically uh, take up the market share that the bigger companies, those MNCs, have traditionally been, you know, occupy the space that they have traditionally been occupying. So probably that's what the person that you're saying is trying to moot that idea, whereby it gives opportunities for small and medium enterprises, not small but medium and large local entities to take up some chunk of that space, because a lot of companies now, I would say, since they recovering from COVID-19, from the effects of COVID-19, sorry, I would say that a lot of companies are staying within their own the confines of the comforts of their operating countries or the regions they are more familiar with, which is why you will see a lot of job cuts happening very, very soon, with many large corporations. I think it was in the news today that Hilton is cutting about 2,100 over jobs in their corporate teams worldwide, right? So we're seeing a lot of this happening, maybe because the big companies, the global MNCs, are retreating back to their home bases, to their comfortable territories, and that might give opportunities for local businesses to grow.
Right. So Farhan, it's been a pleasure discussing with you on the outlook of small businesses in Singapore. Thank you for your time and thoughts.
Thank you, Colin, thanks to Colin and the Adam Smith Center for inviting me to share about small businesses. I hope it has been insightful.
Thank you. It's our pleasure. This has been the Governance and Public Policy podcast by the Adam Smith Center, Singapore.